it was reported that you said in a post, social media post, that you could win this election without receiving any black votes. Is that true or false?
That's false. What I said was I quoted a statistic, some information that I had found. I basically said that in Pasadena, due to the voter turnout, looking at the statistics, a candidate, not myself, a candidate can win an election in Pasadena without one vote, without one actual black vote, which when you look at the data and statistics, is absolutely true. Maybe because it was me saying it was probably taken out of context. And you know, I've had many conversations about that in regards to making sure people understood what I meant by that particular comment and know that there was no malice, because my campaign is about discovery and me learning, but also sharing with others also. It backfired in a sense because I wanted to ignite the black community and to get them to understand that their voices, I hear their frustrations, but I don't see your frustrations in the polls and the booths, and you're not actually showing up. So that was my true, genuine intent. Once more, as I said, on this journey, I'm continuing to evolve, and continue to grow. And when I get people that go back at me, it actually gives me an opportunity to look at a different perspective, because I'm not hard set on just my narrative. And so I appreciated that opportunity actually came to where people were in an uproar and felt some kind of way about it, because it gave me an opportunity to just truly sit back and reflect. And how did I deliver that? Could have done that better. So.
Okay. It's also reported that you were seen in Washington, D.C. wearing a MAGA hat.
Yes.
MAGA hat.
Oh, MAGA hat. No, I've never.
First of all, did you wear a MAGA hat? Is there a picture of you wearing a MAGA hat?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Never. First of all, I was in Washington for one of the first times, and I was there for a prestigious event, and I had a brand new haircut. There's no way I would have put a hat on. Into the White House. I mean, I just wouldn't do it. That's not how I roll. But I've been campaigning for an entire year. The only campaign literature material that I wear is my stuff. So you're going to see Major for 2020, Major Williams. So I've never owned a MAGA hat. I don't have a problem with it, but that didn't happen.
Didn't happen. You've evolved, and we just want to touch a little bit on your background, and so people possibly can have some context that you had an entrepreneurial career. You've been in entertainment.
Absolutely.
There's media out there of your art that may land differently with some people.
For sure.
How do you kind of explain where you were then, where you are now, and even the significance of us being in this particular venue, holding this town hall?
Well, in one-on-one personal conversations or in private settings like this, what everyone will have to actually understand is that even when you look in the mirror, there are certain things that you may have made mistakes, or certain things that you actually regret. Me personally, I don't regret anything, because everything that I've done over the last 20 years that I've been in California has built me up to be at a place where I'm at now, whether it be maturely, whether it be mentally, whether it be spiritually. And so I don't hold anything back. I didn't hide anything. The reason why people found those things to be able to solicit and promote those things is because they were there. They weren't erased. Because I'm okay with showing people that I'm a complex human being. Everyone evolves and grows. I'm sure when you were 21, or you was 18, or you was 25 or 30, you had a different mentality, you had a different mindset. I'm a 42-year-old man. I've been with the same woman for 20 years. I have 3 kids. My priorities are different. My perspective in life about success and people and public service is different. I've been a part of nonprofits for over 20 years, giving back and just really trying to hone my craft in regards to the character that I'm becoming, so that ultimately my mom can be proud, and once I pass, my sons can have some great stuff to say about me in my eulogy. So that's at the end of the day. So that's what I'm building towards. And so when that comes up, it is what it is. Some people get it, some people won't, but it's just simply evolution, and I'm okay with that.
Okay. Since you've come to Pasadena, there is this idea of the Pasadena way, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But I kind of want to know some specific examples of partnerships or community outreach, or even maybe faith-based. Like, what specifically can people say, okay, I've seen Major do this, or I've seen Major as a part of this organization? Because Pasadena is a what have you done for me lately kind of city.
For sure. And I get that. And that's one of the main reasons why I started really early working on this campaign, so I can make those particular connections. Because, my background is in marketing, so I understand optics, and I understand So just to rewind back, I didn't want to necessarily show everything that I was doing because sometimes it's not really about that. You just do those things from the goodness of your heart. But like as I said earlier, I've been a part of a nonprofit for 15 years. I give away 1,000 pair of shoes every single year. Most recently, I had a event here at Jackie Robinson Recreation Center. 30 minutes before the event, a young Hispanic kid found out about the event. He came in, shot the lights out, killed everybody, and he won $500 for Christmas. You know, so, and you times that times 1,000. I've done this plenty times over. And so I have a brand called Matrepreneur. So I take in young entrepreneurs, whether it be families, whether it be their kids, they have an ideal, and I help them cultivate their idea from the beginning to the end. Perfect example, this summer I was asked to teach an entrepreneurship class and course at the Boys and Girls Club off of Fair Oaks. The first day I got there, I was the corny guy. Who is this guy? No one knows who I am. There was 15 kids there. We had such a good time. The second day, it was 40 kids there. The third day, it was 75 kids there. And every single day, it grew. Why? Because I have a unique ability, which is I call my superpower, is being able to help individual people. And that's one of the difference between me with my leadership here, what it would look like here in Pasadena. A lot of people create workshops and everyone has to pick and choose and find their way through that. I know how to directly identify with what you want to accomplish and achieve, and I can help you achieve that goal. And the reason being because I was a crash test dummy. I've helped myself to be able to pull myself up and figure out certain things that actually help me be successful, my version of success. And so I've done a lot of different things, whether it be in the church, whether it be with kids through the nonprofit sector, whether it be one-on-one with people as well too, because that's my biggest, that's one of the passions that I really hold dear to, because I feel like everything that I'm doing, I wish someone would have done that for me 20 years ago. And so I just work really hard to just be an impact and value to people every single day. So I've done a lot here locally in Pasadena. I just don't advertise and put it on the billboard.
Let's jump into another issue. Cannabis has been a big issue here in the city.
Yeah.
From how it was initially rolled out, what voters wanted, on down to the 9,200 signatures that was gained to put a different measure on the ballot for this upcoming election. The city decided to sue itself. Mm-hmm. If you're the mayor, how would you have led this process so that the city is not us, the taxpayers, forking out money to actually sue ourselves to stop something that the people said they want?
Well, I would have acknowledged that it was a redundant process. There's no way that you can set a standard and allow people to be a part of the democratic process and then go back on and renege. And actually go sue yourself to get that particular measure off the ballot. I would have allowed it to play, I would have advocated for it to play its course and let the actual citizens vote for it, because that is a democratic process. When you set up those barriers or set up those defenses, now you kind of eliminate the voices of the people here locally, and I feel like that's what happened. My stance on some of the dispensaries that were approved, I'm not a huge advocate for the one that's coming out on Colorado, but I do understand the qualifications. If they qualified, I believe in fair.
Let me ask you this: if you are the mayor, will you push for a social equity program? Because right now the model does not include an opportunity for those who have been systematically or criminally prosecuted here in the city, particularly black and brown. Mm-hmm. Would you push for that? I
would. To me, it's a no-brainer, and I think it's an opportunity also. So I would definitely push for that.
Okay. Homelessness is an issue. Have you ever participated like on a homeless count? Like, what's your experience like on the ground with some of our less fortunate residents?
So I've participated in homelessness from multiple levels. One, just going out and just giving back, being a part of different food drives, clothing drives. One of the things, since I was running as a candidate, I wanted to understand the mechanisms of what was available for the citizens. So I went and sat down with the CEO of Union Station, which is one of our biggest services for homelessness here in Pasadena, and I sat with the director and the CEO of the company, and we had a 2-hour conversation. The conversation was supposed to be like 15, 20 minutes. We ended up talking, having this great conversation for 2 hours. And my thing was, I wanted to get behind the curtains and to understand what was available, what was working, what wasn't working, and what is the percentage rate of what you're producing in regards to people actually being rehabilitated, so to speak, and what housing is available, and what are the obstacles and the difficulties doing the job that you do. And so I've been very instrumental in regards to educating myself in that particular area.
Is it a municipal, county, state, or federal job to solve the homeless issues here in Pasadena? And as mayor, how will you kind of navigate us through that process?
It's so complex, it has to be a variety. It has to be everyone joining hands and coming together at some capacity to try to come up with, with solutions for it. I don't think just municipal, I don't think just state, I don't think just federal. I think it's so complex, especially here in California, it's so out of control. We have to figure out some kind of way to bridge the gap, and we all have different resources, and that's why I say that. We may have, federal may have different resources that can expedite the process more so than state. State can expedite the process, will have different resources than also municipal. And so I think collectively all have to work together in some capacity. And you need someone that can negotiate and go into those rooms and mediate in a way that is effective enough to where they can all work together and move forward for the common good.
Okay. Affordable housing has been, probably one of the top issues here in the city over the last 18 months. And last month, the council signed a moratorium in advance of the state going to a rent cap, if you will, 7-8%. But with most people not even receiving a raise of 7-8% annually, what was your position on the actual moratorium? And how do you feel about rent control?
The moratorium, I feel like, it was something that was needed. I think it was something that was, I'm glad they actually stepped up and did something about it. But, honestly, you look at the time of the things on how they all play out, to me it's just politics. Why this should have been done 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And so I take it with a grain of salt for the ones that it actually benefited and worked. But I'm all for fairness when it comes to housing. Rent control, I think there has to be something that is different, because if rent control is actually passed tomorrow, the person that's having a hard time paying their rent tomorrow, the next day, they still have the same predicament. And so I don't think that's the universal answer to our housing crisis. It is going to require us to have more housing and creating more economic opportunity so we can actually afford to live in the city and not be priced out.
That's interesting. I mean, when you say more housing, inventory is obviously an issue. And Mayor Tornick said on my show that in order to build something, you have to tear something down.
For sure.
With development of luxury apartments on the rise here in the city, I mean, are you a developer-friendly, would you be a developer-friendly mayor, or would you, as some have said, put profits over people? What would be your style of leadership in helping stabilize the growth of Pasadena?
I think that through a term of any kind of mayor, any kind of term of any kind of leadership, you have different phases. So at the beginning, it may be one way, but at the end, it may be another way. We understand right now we don't need a lot of development. We feel like we're being overdeveloped as it is, and then we have luxury houses that are standing tall, and they're 35% occupied, and they've been standing there for 2 years. And so now we just have to relook at the situation. So out the gate, no, I wouldn't be developer friendly in regards to if I became the mayor of Pasadena. Moving forward, I would actually have different kind of stipulations. And once more, and I frame this in a way, because if you fact check some of the things that I say, I always try to frame it in a way that I don't know every single thing in regards to how our city works in regards to our relationships with developers. But what I will say is, from my creative mind, I would approach it differently. So if you want to develop in our city, you're going to come under certain pretenses. You're going to have certain amounts of affordable housing that's going to be available, and you're going to hire a certain amount of people locally in our city as well too. So those are the type of things that I would advocate for.
I mean, you're talking about inclusionary housing,
Yeah.
and kind of a local hire, which we have that right now just down the street.
Right.
The largest development in Pasadena,
By parcels.
10 Walnut. And locals haven't been hired.
Right.
So how would you fix that problem?
So it has to start with the deal. If you don't have if you don't have certain sanctions in place, you have to penalize these people. All these developers that are coming in here that go beyond our local ordinance or city ordinance, and they're trying to build based upon state ordinance because they can, we have to have something in our relationship together structurally, legally, that penalizes them. So if they're going to go above and beyond our heads here as a city, we have to penalize them 100%. And they have to sign off on it before they even touch ground and break ground in our city.
Police, Pasadena and specifically the Northwest community has a very storied history with our police department. Some residents and advocacy groups are calling for civilian oversight. How do you feel about putting in place a civilian oversight of our police department?
Civilian oversight, in my opinion, is very broad. It has to be very detailed and outlined for me to actually give a true answer on that. Civilian oversight can mean so many different things, and that hasn't come from a combination of...
Let's say some legislative teeth, some subpoena power, similar to how Los Angeles Police Department has their commission. It's flawed, but I want to see how that would play out for you here in Pasadena.
I'm open to it. I'm open for the discussion. You know, I'm open to understand what that truly means. I'm open to understanding how it will impact the departments, and also I'm open to seeing the type of mechanisms that the actual community want, because these type of questions, politicians answer these questions really good because they have all the answers. They know how to fix everything when they're talking to you out in the public forum like this, but when they get in there, they don't know how to fix anything because it's not typically what it is once you're actually trying to put some legislation together. And so until I actually understood what Northwest wanted, what their demands were, what their requests were, you truly can't give a real answer on that. And if not, you're shooting fluff.
I mean, I think it's either kind of yes or no, but I'll hold and we want to make sure we get to it.
I'm open to it.
Okay, we're open to it. Pasadena Unified School District and our public education system. You sent a campaign email out one time that said our public education system and the leaders are blind to fiscal responsibility and lack imagination on how to bridge the gap on taking control of the damage they have caused with years of bad decisions piling up. I want you to explain, this question was submitted from the audience, but they'd like for you to explain your understanding of our particular school district, how it's funded, and to cite the historic systemic issues that have brought us to the school closures.
I think that even with the leadership that's with our PUSD right now, it actually is a combination of leadership even before them. So what we're dealing with the problems in regards to, like I said, bad decisions fiscally, lack of education in regards to how we present our education. I was looking at some of what people were saying when I had a coffee meet up here recently, and they was asking me, what do you feel about the local school? I feel like the local school doesn't market itself effectively enough in regards to saying that the private schools and the charter schools are taking over here in our city. Well, what you have to understand, everything evolves, and we have to evolve as PUSD as well too. And I think that you have to understand that just because you are locally or in that particular district doesn't mean that you necessarily are going to earn those students or earn those parents. And so I was speaking to a principal Gray with John Muir, and I was explaining to him the importance of marketing and communication. If you effectively market to parents, and you know, you'll get everyone excited at some capacity, but it comes down to people just being ignited. And transparency is one of the main things that people are talking about as far as the parents in regards to transparency and communication. They don't know what's going on, they don't know what their kids are being taught, and so they feel some kind of way in regards to being left out and their voices not being heard. And so when you create a culture like that, you create a trend and it trickles down. And if you don't address it in a timely manner, you'll be at a place where you are currently today.
Just two more points and then we'll open it up to the audience.
Yeah.
You've talked about, and I don't know how this landed with some people, but your Pasadena Fund and residential prosperity. And you offered a solution to a potential constituent of other ways to generate revenue and income. What is the Pasadena Fund, and why do you feel that that's important for your platform and for the residents of Pasadena?
I believe it's important because it's someone that's addressing economics. When you focus on economics, especially from a leadership perspective, it's a trickle-down effect. It creates a domino effect. It actually helps solve a lot of problems here locally in our city.
Can you kind of explain, because maybe, I don't know if everybody knows
The
what
actual
the Pasadena
Pasadena
Fund is, yeah, so maybe explain that a little bit.
So the ideal of the Pasadena Fund is basically like it's a combination of a GoFundMe / capital venture fund collectively put together. It's not a genius idea that I've thought of. It's something that's already happened time and time again. And I just actually put the label and the tag name Pasadena Fund on it. And so basically what it is, the ideal model that I use, you take 3,000 residents in Pasadena, and you ask them to participate and contribute over $20 a month for the next 15 months. After 15 months, that fund is worth $900,000. And the beauty of that particular fund, it has two flexible purposes. One of the purposes is that if you came to me and said, hey, you know, I found a property in Detroit and it's a great opportunity for me to flip it and make some money on it, but it's going to be $15,000 for you to actually purchase it. Maybe you don't have that liquid cash right there, but you're a part of a family, a unit, which is called the Pasadena Fund, where you can actually go there and bring your opportunity to them. What'll happen is that you'll take that $15,000 from the Pasadena Fund, they'll fund it for you. Then you find out it's going to be another $15,000 to fix up. There's $30,000. You get 100% of that from the fund. After you guys go and fix it up, say for instance you flip it, and I'm expediting a little bit, but you flip the house and you make X amount of dollars. The fund in itself, it receives 70% of the profit from the flip. You receive 30% of the profit. The idea behind the 30%, now you have enough capital and cash to actually go and duplicate the process without the fund by yourself. And so what did I do then? What did the fund do for you? It made you more self-sustainable. Now, if you're an everyday working 9 to 5 type of person, and now you're a part of a fund where now you can become an owner, because I preach, you know, about ownership, owning equity, having investments, and being educated on how to do that over and over again. So that's the beauty of the Pasadena Fund. Now, the second component, which why I call it a flexible fund, is that we see a lot of gentrifications in our communities. So instead of the Chick-fil-A coming in your community from someone outside that you don't know, now you can actually champion with the mayor and the city council members, and you actually fight for the right to put your Chick-fil-A or your McDonald's or whatever shop that you want that's trying to come there, and you can champion, and you guys collectively can buy that particular franchise. So now what has happened? You got 3,000 residents in the city who now have ownership. And mind you, that's just one. You can duplicate that 1,000 times. You're building wealth, you're building legacy, but more importantly, you're changing the mindset of people in general when it comes to financial literacy, financial wealth, and your ambitions grow. And so that's kind of like the root of where that actually came from. Mm-hmm. And I've told people many times, and even in settings like this, say for instance, if it's a horrible ideal. I've heard ideals before, and it wasn't for me, but because I heard it from that particular person in that certain way, it gave me an idea to go and do something else. So say for instance, if the Pasadena Fund sound like a lot of fluff, it's not a good idea. But you left here today, or that person who left when we were talking about it, left and created something that was even better, that was able to help their family, that was able to help their community. That's the whole point of it. That's the whole point of everything that I'm doing. I've sat for 8.5 years watching the political process here in the city, and everyone, all they did was about posturing. I have a track record and history of making people money. It probably isn't millionaires, but if you made an extra $5,000 a month based upon doing something that you want to do after our particular conversation, well, hell, that's a good start. And the fact that, you know, if you ask the current mayor, you know, this guy's saying that he can help people make money, he's focused on people's pockets, because I look at it as a partnership, not me as your leader. He'll say, that's not my job, and he would be absolutely right. Because if you look at the black and white definition of the role, absolutely he's right. But it's time for us to operate beyond the black and white definition of what the role entitled the mayor is, period. And so that's why I came up with the Pasadena Fund as one of many ideas that I have to empower people here in the city. If all I'm hearing is rent control, affordable housing, being priced out, we have to fight in multiple ways. We can fight for the rent control and everything else, but what about fighting to make more? And how can we expedite that? By joining forces, doing it together. You guys have all the power in the world collected together, but you don't use it, you don't utilize it effectively enough. There's too many fights in one direction. You have to be able to fight from multiple angles and attack, and that's my perspective.
Last one, and then we'll get ready to turn it over to the audience. You've been here, like I said, for some time now, and there's this idea that I am still searching to find either two people give me the same answer or just one answer. The Pasadena way. What does that mean to you?
You want the version that I know now or the version that I thought before I was educated?
I think we'll take both.
So, early on when I was going to run, I heard that oftentimes, and I remember the first time I met you, people was talking about the Pasadena way, and I was like, oh, okay, so that means that people are kind of stuck in their ways. They're kind of used to what they're used to. They don't like to be uncomfortable. So it's kind of like on the surface. As I was able to explore and do more discovery and have even deeper conversations with people in the community, you're not from here. You didn't go to school here. You wasn't born and raised here. And so the Pasadena way, especially, is if you don't have any skin in the game from birth or from high school or some kind of lineage in regards to great things that you've done locally here. Doesn't matter if I've helped thousands of people. How many thousands of people have you helped locally here in Pasadena? And that's what I quickly found out, that's what a lot of people meant when they meant by Pasadena way. And for me, it was tough and it was confusing because I feel like success, you can copy and paste it. I feel like genuineness, you can copy and paste it. If I've been effective in certain neighborhoods all over the country with my nonprofit and just me as an individual, I can copy and paste that same type of success here locally in the city. And to me, so it was tough for me to grasp that in the beginning. But once more, I continue to get up every single day.
So what
what
did you learn it to be now? Because you said you had one understanding, then what have you learned?
So that's what I learned. They just wanted me to either be a part of the good old boys, to be born and raised here, to have some kind of experience on what I've actually done here, which is the Pasadena way. So they want who they want, so to speak.
Okay. So the mayor only has one vote on the city council. I think sometimes people think that you have some sort of executive power and can just do whatever you want to do as the mayor. But your first 100 days in office, what's going to be your agenda? What are you going to direct the city manager to do? And then we'll come to the audience just after this question.
The first 100 days, so I try to govern. I've had this conversation 2 days ago. The first 100 days were basically just me. I actually want to just get the people together because I want to hit the ground running with residential prosperity. If we don't start that out the gate and get our true foundation and get a direction on how we're actually going to accomplish that, then I myself will see myself as dropping the ball on that. And so everything else is kind of, it's part of the narrative. You have to address homelessness. You have to address the PUSD. That's the same rhetoric that anyone would say. Me personally, I want to affect and empower people, period. So my first 100 days, you're going to see me. We're going to be linked up. We're going to be Instagram. We're going to be texting each other. We're going to put together power groups. And we're going to make significant change fast, expeditiously.
Would that include the budget? Because you talked about transparent.
No. So what I talk about,
where we can track the budget.
That's in addition to. That's all in addition to. The budget is something that I do want transparency. I did talk about creating a dashboard that would be live on the city council, the city hall website, to where you actually directly see in live time where the funds are going. Now, that may scare a lot of people in city government, but due to technology, those things are possible. I'm working with technology people right now to create a model of what that would actually look like. Will it get passed? Will everyone go for it? No, but you will have an opportunity to voice your opinion to actually champion for it because it's available and it's an opportunity for you to truly see where your dollars go here in the city.
Cool. Well, before we jump in with questions from you guys, from the audience, first I have to say, please make it a question, not a statement, and a code switch, not a testimony. We don't need a lot of the backstory, but if you have a solid question for the candidate, everyone, if you choose to, will have an opportunity. We're going to do this very much by raise your hand. You're welcome to stand up, introduce yourself if you choose, or remain anonymous. But I did, like I said, got some questions in, and I want to go to Brother Eric first, who some people sent one question and others sent 20. So Eric falls somewhere between 1 and 20.
I'm Eric Johnson, local pastor. Do a lot of work with both the school district as well as with the city in terms of advocating for our most vulnerable students. On November the 12th, you sent an email, a campaign email that I had questions about. So I want to read your statement and then ask a question regarding it.
Sure.
We have screamed and shouted from the sidelines for years, hoping our city officials would get their act together. We allowed them to tax us more with Measure I&J under the pretense it would solve our school closure scare. We now see that that was a lie all along, and we are left to blame and pay for the bill because no one has come forth to take responsibility for duping us again. Is this the Pasadena you want to continue to live in now or later? So my specific question is, do you have any documentation of any documents that came out about Measure I&J, any statement from either the mayor, the city manager, assistant city manager, anyone from the school district that promised that Measure I&J would stop school closures?
No, I don't have a document, but I wish I would record it. So I'm a marketing guy. And so when I went to these meetings where they were promoting and advocating for Measure I&J, whether it be city council members and also the mayor in certain spaces, they actually framed it through a fear-based perspective. And they also framed it in a way to where you feel like if you sign this, this is so detrimental because it's going to change the services that we're going to have here in the city. It's going to take you from a top-tier service in Pasadena. Oh God, if Pasadena don't have top-tier services, we're going to plummet. Right? So if you don't vote for this, this is what's going to happen. We're not going to have 2 cop cars come and an ambulance. It's only going to be 1 cop car. You're not going to have all these schools that are fighting against the budget. If you don't do this, then this is what's going to happen. Schools could possibly close. So this is the verbiage that I heard while I was actually going to these different town hall meetings that they were having, pushing the Measure I&J agenda. And so me, I understand framing, I understand messaging, I understand how people pitch deals and they negotiate and get you to a point to where you have to cut a check, or you say yes or you check that box in favor of. And so that was my personal take on it. Whether it's universally accepted, probably not. But I think it's a great question. But I did hear them say on many occasions that if this didn't happen, X, Y, Z was going to happen. And then fast forward a year later, those things actually still happen in regards to schools closing.
Okay, now when you say they, who specifically did you hear make a statement that would have led to school closures regarding I&J?
Every time I heard city managers speak and also a couple of council members speak about it, they use the same frame. Good. Keep shooting, man. Come on, I'm here.
It concerns me that if without a documentation or a statement, that when that goes out to constituents like myself, it's not truthful.
Yeah.
So why put out something that is not truthful or that you can't back up?
Well, I look at it from 2 different perspectives, and I'm a resident. I'm a voter also. And so this is something that I felt like I was duped. So sometimes you can lash out in regards to how you feel, as far as your personal experience. And so I'm allowed to have my personal experience on how I felt because I was at those particular meetings. I took time out of my day away from my family to go and participate and be a part of the democratic process because ultimately I had to vote for it also. Right?
And I'm fine with you saying that that's how you felt,
Yeah.
but you didn't frame it as yourself, you framed it as we.
Right. November,
November 4th.
I be off. No, I get it. It's a great point.
So the last thing I would say about that is, if it's only representing you, it would be great if there was maybe
I
a
promise
retraction.
you, it wasn't only representing me. I've been campaigning for an entire year, and even after that, I've spoken to thousands of people here locally in the city. I get 100 text messages a day on my phone. It isn't necessarily come from me. I have 2 or 3 coffee meetups a week. So this came from a continuation of sitting in front of people, sitting in front of people, sitting in front of people. Some people that's even in this room today, like I've actually didn't just come out of it just from a singular perspective. This is something that was actually cultivated and kind of all universally felt the same way. So it wasn't just me. I can see how you can see that. And I'll take that as a learning lesson moving forward.
All right.
Thank you.
Good?
Yep.
Martin, you had a question?
I have a number of questions, but I'll prefer until we get a little farther down the road because I have a little issue with passing away. No, because I understand he hasn't been passing for a long time, and there are 2 different sections. Now, they don't want me to theorize, but there are 2 different things when you talk about passing away. It's what the passing people think, and it's what the politicians think. Because the passing away does not mean the good old boys club. And because I've said it many times, it said, you're going to do it the passing away, which means the people have the impact. And that's what the passing away is about.
Questions from anybody else? Brother Charles?
Thank you, James. My name is Charles Boyd. I've been a resident of Pasadena for the past 20 years. Actively engaged in community development for about half that time. And I've observed a steady but consistent erosion of key city services provided in some part by very highly credible nonprofits that are no longer here. In other cases, city agencies that provide services. Just to name a few really quickly, there was the Pasadena Neighborhood Housing Services, Pasadena Economic Development Corporation, Neighborhood Connections, Pasadena Neighborhood Housing Services. I mean, we used to provide affordable housing services throughout the entire city. So the question, as mayor, and reminded by the moderator that the mayor only has 1 vote on the city council, but what tools and other resources do you feel the mayor's office would bring that you might utilize to leverage those resources to bring back some of those key community services that are no longer here?
That's a great question, and the key word that you actually just used is leverage. You know, having a different take and different perspective with different leaderships brings a different kind of sense of energy and connection with other outside entities that would actually want to come here and participate and be a part of what we're trying to build and what we used to have here in regards to services. There's a lot of stigma from what I've heard. A lot of people don't want to come here now. You know, you got to think about it. A lot of people don't want to come to our city because of when they get here. There's so many regulations. There's so much red tape. There's so many stipulations that actually deters them from actually coming here. So I think once you have someone in place in regards to leadership, beyond needing a vote or not needing a vote, but you can actually cultivate relationships to actually compel people to want to come out here and be a part of what we're doing. And one of the ways that we would do that is that sometimes somebody like me and you will figure out what those programs would actually be, and we'd actually go and bring those partnerships to them so they don't have to think about what it could be. It'd be our job to market it and put it together and actually present it to them to come in and fund it and create it and execute it in a benefit for our kids. I'm a huge advocate for that. I started in the mental health industry working with kids in group homes, etc. So I've been doing this for 15, 20 years in that aspect. But when it comes to our services, and if we have a lack thereof, that's something I would be a huge advocate for. And if you have any experience in something with something like that, you'll be one of the first people that I actually call when I get in the office.
Anybody else? Ryan.
Hi, Andrew. So I was listening to your conversation about the Pasadena Fund, and it sounded an awful lot to me like what taxes should be for, right? And we've heard a lot about the erosion of public services, the erosion of the availability of our budgetary abilities in the city. And I think historically it's been unions and city government, public education that's kept people up to a standard of living. And it sounded to me a little bit like you were trying to like privatize the government in a way, like to create a private fund that would then help people grow wealth, which I'm all in favor of everybody, growing wealth, and we all are in that struggle every single day. But I'm a little concerned that that you aren't as supportive about like measures that would control rising rents, measures that would increase the stock of affordable housing, as we're seeing like maybe 5 affordable units for every 60 that are built in a kind of exchange of, and then tax giveaways to developers. I feel like we have our Pasadena fund.
Right.
You know, it's like the city budget. And if we could manage that better, and I just wonder how you understand the role of government versus the role of private enterprise, and how you feel about public-private partnerships, which, to my understanding, have sometimes been used to suck funds out of communities.
Right, thank you, that's a great question. So, to explain it in further detail, the Pasadena Fund is created by the people, for the people, it has nothing to do with the city government. So, what I offer is the in addition to. And so the budget, we can still focus on that in those regards, but this is an ideal that I'm sharing with the community, that I would be a participant in regards to helping them execute it and get it done. I'm not a part of it, I wouldn't be on the board, I wouldn't be of anything. This is just an ideal that I'm sharing with them. In addition to, as I said earlier, we have to be able to fight in multiple ways. And so when it comes to that, I'm an advocate for it. I'm all for fairness, and fairness falls up under that umbrella when it comes to it. I'm an advocate against 60 units and only 5 houses being available for affordable housing. To me, that's a no-brainer. It came up in poverty. I was homeless, so I've been a part of that plight, so I understand all angles, but I also understand the fact that when you're a part of that particular cycle, you become, there is an opportunity to become victim-minded, right? Like everyone owes you something. And so I've developed a different aspect of who I become. It's like, that's what it is, but I'm going to figure out how to make more and figure out how to do it myself. But not only not for myself, I'm going to show these 10 people, then they're going to get it so good enough to where they're going to go and show and share with 10 other people as well too. So I do understand the mechanism of both, and I thank you for bringing that to the attention. And I wanted to express it even further to everyone here. There is a huge difference. This has nothing to do with the City Hall. You don't have to vote on the Pasadena Fund. This is just an ideal that a person from leadership now is actually championing for you to have better ideals and opportunities for your actual pockets. That's pretty much what it is.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
I just had a quick question. Is the position of mayor part-time? I thought I heard that.
Yes, it is.
Part-time.
Extremely.
What does that mean? 20 hours a week, 30 hours?
It's spotty because, it's city council meetings, it's meetings, developments, different companies that are coming there. So there's no set 20 hours or 30 hours. It's kind of spotty.
But it's meant to be part-time.
Absolutely.
It pencils out to about $15 an hour.
Yeah. It's a minimum wage job.
So it's like,
Basically.
Anyone else?
Right here.
Go ahead.
Hello. Lately I've been going, my name is Emmanuel. I've been going to the city council meetings lately the past couple of years. And one thing I noticed is that when ordinary people go, they usually go when there's a problem. And the people who are most informed are usually the people who the city council members know because they email them and they're from neighborhood associations. I know like what about a Rose Bowl? They have a lot of sway in the city council. If they say something they don't want, most likely that's not gonna happen. I guess you said true, right? So,
I just made a noise.
oh, okay. It's fine.
Retweets are not endorsement.
Yeah. So my question is, how would you outreach to the people who are renters? Because the only time renters came is when they're getting evicted. The Washington 16 were getting kicked out. They're talking about the marijuana ordinance. I was there. I criticized the council for drawing up a flawed ordinance, but I guess people just, the city council says yes, they vote for it.
Right.
I was there also in the discussion for Measure I&J, and just to rebut you, the city manager during the meetings kept on saying, we cannot decide the fate of the school district, it's up to the school board. So it's things like that. Things like that at the meetings I hear and I try to explain to people, but I guess in this age, it's social media rules. So just how are you gonna, I don't know, use social media or emails or something to get the ordinary people to understand what's going on in the city?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I actually, I think It's a unique opportunity for us to be able to communicate effectively with everyone. I oftentimes look at certain events that I attend here locally in the city, and I just, I always kind of always look at it like why so many people aren't here, so to speak. And they say we put a like when I find out when city council meetings are closed, I'm actually at the doors and I see a signage on the actual door, right? But they say they send out an email and I never get it. So one of the things I would do, because I am very open-minded when it comes to marketing, social media and stuff like that, I would create an actual app. I would email, I would use social media, and I would use people. People is your biggest your ally in regards to getting the word out about certain things that we're doing, whether it be events, whether it be measures that are coming up, things that are important to actually the community. But I just think we have to be innovative and use our imagination in regards to how we do outreach. And like I said, my first thing that I was talking about is like an app. We can create an app that everyone can actually, we can promote and market that app. And everyone get notifications similar to like the Nextdoor app or the Meetup app. All these apps give you notifications. So at least we are going far and beyond to make sure that people can connect. Now, you're gonna have always those people that are not going to connect because that's just not what they do. My sister's 45, she's a couple years older than me, and she doesn't know how to use a laptop, so you always have those type of scenarios, but we can do a better job in regards to effort and to making sure that we communicate with a broader audience here in the city.
I would guess 99% of you heard about this on social media. Is that correct?
Yes.
And either through an email or even Pasadena Now or Pasadena Politics page. So I think mailers are becoming a bit antiquated, and I see your hand. Mailers are becoming a bit antiquated. Information is available kind of on demand and when you want it. And so I think to answer your question, Manuel, it's people will be checking into the social space. That's just where we get our information.
Well, the real struggle is to get them to call you.
Right, and the difference between me and current leadership, anyone else, is that all my social media accounts started at 0 when I announced what I was going to run. Each account is over 4,000 followers right now, and I'm super active. I have over 5,000 posts. I'm always on there, whether I'm doing lives, whether I'm interacting with people. And another thing, I share my phone number. My phone number is on all my campaign literature. I get tons of text messages every single day, and it's me replying back to my phone that's right over here. So that's one of the different parallels that I would use personally as my platform to be able to communicate effectively with people in the city.
And you can always follow the conversation live. Go ahead, man. Yes, ma'am.
Just a question, you may or may not have this stat, but I heard this, and so it's pretty pathetic. For the last election, they said we know the number of registered voters here in Pasadena. I heard maybe 80,000, and for the last election, was it true that only 8,000 registered voters actually voted?
15,000.
15,000 out of 80,000.
The current mayor is in office right now with 8,000 votes. So right now, currently, we have 88,000 people that are registered voters here in the city.
Right.
And, he won with 8,000 votes in 2015. And so that was another reason why I did that statistic and graph. And, it kind of backfired on me in regards to how I was trying to share it with the Black community. It's like, hey, when I'm doing these walks in the community, I'm here in frustration, I'm here in different plights, but I'm also saying that, okay, that's great, but are you showing up, right? And I think my goal was to hopefully just really work past that, which is why I create things like this. I don't know if you guys are aware that this is about to be a very busy month for all of the candidates, but the difference is that I want to create this ahead of the curve to give everyone an opportunity to directly, hear me speak and share, but also just really to hear your questions that you have for me, because I don't really have control of those forums. None of us do. It's just kind of like, you deal with the moderator, they're asking certain questions, and then it's on to the next, so to speak. But yeah, that's a true statistic.
So he has to deal with moderator. Just for your information, ma'am, in the last cycle, Jackie Robinson lost by maybe 1,200 votes or so, somewhere around there. But what happened is she had more people turn out to the polling place. The current mayor had more people nailed it. So whoever your candidate of choice is, I would encourage you to vote early if you've already made up your mind. There's a hand over, let me let that lady Jane know about this guy.
Van Jones couldn't do that necessarily by himself. No one is taking any credit away from Van Jones, especially myself. Yeah, everyone has started something. Nothing is new, so to speak. You know, everything needs a little help in some capacity.
Well, my concern is if he gets in office again, we may lose the vote, we may lose the right to choose, and gay marriage can go out the window, and God knows what else. And if you support that, you do not have a vote.
Okay.
It is different. So really, go ahead and vote.
Thank you so much for coming. I look forward to talking with you offline as well.
Yeah, I can't handle it.
I grew up in the 50s and 60s in the South, I can handle it.
Yeah, in some of the reporting I've done, and even in the social space, I really want to keep this conversation Pasadena-centric. That doesn't mean I support Trump or I support any of the field of Democrats.
Right.
I just feel that in this space right now, what is in front of us is the leadership and policies in the Crown City. And so, you know, I'm probably gonna step over a line a little bit, but when I first met Major, I met a man, I met a husband, I met a father. And then the rest of that stuff came with him. And so if we just are able to see people as human beings and civically disagree, and I'm okay with the sister, you know, expressing herself, and this isn't the place for her. But I also thank you guys for not attacking her in any way. Shorter, you're up next, brother.
First of all, thank you for being here and for giving us an opportunity to ask questions. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I got issues on the other side too. And being a father of 5 children, I've been married to my wife, who was a Pasadena resident. She was born and raised here. We've been married 18 years, we have 5 children. I'm on the East Coast. I live in New York, I live in Savannah, Georgia.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
You just gotta do a little pan. Sorry. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Thank you for that. You're welcome. And I gotta figure out where everything is. I know you from somewhere, but I'm trying to get to the meeting. I have to figure it out. Ah!
who is this guy? He's asking, and I was pulling everything out. He had no idea what I was doing. I was pulling everything out of him. We had a great conversation. We built up a really good rapport. But after he found out, that all dissipated and changed. But looking at it from a perspective of being able to have a leverage and use this, I didn't feel like this position was being used or leveraged in a way that can actually empower and help people. It was used from a worker's perspective, in my personal opinion. There were no moments of connectivity with anyone that I was talking to. I just really felt like it was time for a different brand of leadership. I don't have a bad campaign to run against anybody. I just feel like where we are now, as a community, as a city, it is really time for a different brand of leadership. And why not have somebody with a different skill set? More oftentimes, they always try to tell you to keep you in the fear factor, to tell you that you can't do this because you're not have master's degrees and you haven't been doing this for 30 years. I actually had someone tell me, how do you feel like, how do you have the audacity to run for mayor? You've never been mayor before. Like, think how that sounds, right? They're coming up with everything to tell me that I'm not good enough, right? Which gives me even more fuel to the fire because, as I said earlier, being genuine and success can be copied and pasted right into this particular role. So it's not a scary role for me to go. So I'm willing to give it that. At the end of the day, I'm willing to give the alternative. I understand that I have to only represent one vote. But beyond who my personal self is, I can help so many people from the place of leadership to be able to leverage this. Imagine that 14-year-old boy knowing that this guy right here is the mayor. So what does that do? It makes him listen to me a little bit more versus I'm just like a regular guy. So I'm doing it for multiple reasons, but it's really to just really empower, to partner with, gentlemen like this man here that's doing great work. I've already heard about what he's done. I'm itching to get in the war room with him and create even more empowerment for these youth and for these kids. So that's what I'm doing, to empower people to work with people, to not be a leader. The leader, I'm doing it to partner with people, the community.
Martin?
I want to get off the subject a little bit. Everybody's talking about affordable housing, jobs, all these different things, but we have a major windfall about to come down here. Somebody mentioned, we're talking about the INJ, but cannabis, the cannabis initiative passed. Whether you like cannabis or not, cannabis is here. And we're gonna have 5, I think we've, at least 5, one that's already had their conditional use permit, and there's gonna be 4 more. It's happening, and there's nothing that's gonna change that. What I'm concerned about is through this whole process, the city council has not really been involved. They had a consultant come in and say who is gonna be the best, but nobody's looking out for this community. So I'm looking for, there's a social equity piece that says, if you come and you sell cannabis here in Pasadena or anywhere, you have to look at the people most affected by the drug laws and that were put in jail doing the exact same thing. And that money has to go to those communities and those people. So far, I have seen no city council person, no mayor, nobody looking out for us, as there are billions of dollars that will be made in the next 5 years by cannabis, whether you love it or not. And so if you're gonna make $1 billion, that money has to come back to the community most affected. Some of that's in the Northwest, and to the people, and those people live all over Pasadena. Who and what do you think about how are we gonna make sure that that happens for us and has a, maybe unlike some of the other people, maybe you've given it some thought. This is important, billions of dollars.
Right. I think that's a great question. That's, honestly, it's like James said earlier, even if it came for something that came up to a vote, I only do have one vote. But where I can be very instrumental is being an advocate for it, to be supportive of it, and just figure out how we can actually make that happen. Because at the end of the day, it comes with ordinances, legislature, or whatever the case may be, but we have to address it. I agree with you. Because like I said, my foundation is fairness. And you made a very strong point. If we're at this point right now, we have people who are punished for it, we need to amend that and also capture those funds moving forward. So however we do that, that's something that, like I said, you would be a person that I would advocate for and have you come on board and say, hey, and you would be able to lead us in the right direction when it comes to that, so we can understand what it looks like so to speak, because you have to think about it. If council hasn't been for it, sometimes it really comes down to information and misinformation. If they don't know, they don't know at the end of the day.
I like that. I like what you said. Here's what's important. How can you have $1 billion industry come into this community and the city council don't know? We might need a new mayor, we might need some new city council people, because this is not okay. And let me just make one more statement, and what I want you to look at is that not only is there money coming here, but the city's gonna make money out of there. Where's that money gonna go? That money's gonna come to our community.
I agree.
Right. Good, Martin?
No, I'm not through, but
Hold on a second there. Anybody on this side? Yeah, no. Okay. All right. Now, there was one of those people that sent 40 questions. So we're going to hopefully get 1 or 2.
Okay.
Okay.
And I pray you do, for the record, read all my 40 questions. But I do want to tag off with him. I know for a fact there are about 6 in Pasadena. 2 don't qualify. They were gonna put 3 in a certain area and the other 2 somewhere. Why is that? And how do they determine where they're gonna put that 3? And it must have changed, maybe it changed since the last meeting, but I wanna know that. Then also, this cannabis stuff, I get high listening to this stuff. And I wanna know, why don't they have, for the working homeless or the working poor, a safe harbor for homeless people that sleep in their cars? You know, they're concentrating on beautifying this and preserving heritage this and $1 million here, and look at that car, and we need to make that to beautify and attract people here for the parade. But what about the 500 homeless in Pasadena? What about the majority of the renters that can't afford to live here? The gentrification. What happens to the working poor who's priced out of their pension from 20 years ago? You know, here I helped build the city from, like they say the slaves did, for what, 1978 is when I moved here and bought my first home. I can't even afford to live here. And I've been working in the community in almost every organization there is, black, white, and indifferent. Right. And can't afford. I came to put myself on the senior list, 68. That's a 6-year waiting list. Mm-hmm. My pension and my Social Security. Guess what? I retired in 1999. I can't afford to live here anymore. Mm-hmm. Gave up my house, now I can't afford to rent. And I was told, is he here? The property manager that told me if I spoke out about gentrification and rent control, I would be blackballed in this city. And I believe that. He was telling the truth. Now, who's gonna make it alive?
Great question.
That's only part of my 40 questions.
Can I ask for a clarification?
Would you please repeat the question?
He's serious.
No, first of all, he was not provided any questions that were submitted. That would not be fair or ethical.
Gotcha. But you will.
I will give him your questions.
Gotcha.
At this point.
Gotcha.
So let's start with the one-line first question.
Yes, the first question with the cannabis and the 2 areas, quote unquote, which areas are those?
And why they
Where
chose
does
those
it-
particular ones. You're asking why they chose those?
How they
particular
chose those, I know you can't be near a school, you can't be near, Levant has liquor and this and that and the other, all these liquor stores around. But how did they choose the areas that cannot have the cannabis and take the 3 and put those in the 9103 or whatever, district 3 or whatever? So how did they do that, and why don't they just make it,
Well,
if you don't qualify, why don't they just make it 3?
Well, I think you kind of answered it in the sense that some of them, I guess, disqualify because of those sanctions in regards to like where they are located or going to be located or were said to be located in regards to the distance between a school, I believe like a church or a park or something like that.
So why don't they just make it 4 then, and each one has 1, as opposed to taking one area and putting 3 in it? Hello? I don't know, I'm not a math major, don't put me over your thing, but, okay, you 2 don't qualify because we don't have enough area, so just have 4.
Yeah.
Anything?
I don't have an answer for that. Honestly.
Okay, so put that on your list of what you're
Yeah,
gonna do.
yeah, but that's,
It's unfair for you.
You can't have 3 in one district.
It's unfair for Major because he didn't vote for it.
Huh?
He didn't vote for it.
I didn't say he did, but I'm asking him what he would do if.
Okay, well, he will do it, not how.
And
I think
in other
you
words-
asked him how to explain it.
Yeah, because if you have 6 and you take away 2, that leaves 4. So just tell the other 2 that's on the low on the list, we don't have enough room, and just do 4.
I want to take your time. I'll explain to you afterwards. It sounds like a meeting.
I was at the meeting too, did you see it?
Deborah, I will send you a link to an episode of Conversation Live where we go completely through this whole story.
Got you.
So you'll have the complete background. Pasadena Now has reported on it, so I'm not answering this for Major, but I'm answering it for the people in attendance. The council was not in the process of how the setbacks, is what it's called, was actually drafted. They just approved it. And when you look at government, if you were in the private sector, most people would have lost their jobs over the way that they fumbled and handled this situation. This isn't an indictment on David Reyes or the city manager or any staff that worked on the process, but it was flawed from the very, 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 very onset. Next question.
Hi, my name is Lena. This is probably a question that's deeper and can't be answered immediately, but I'm wondering why, when we've got so many problems with legal drugs, illegal drugs, all the craziness that's going on in our society today, don't you think that there should be a discussion of why are we legalizing marijuana?
I think the discussion has occurred many times over and over, which is how we got to this point right now.
I mean, besides the financial question, because I also heard that the state did not actually make the gods of money that they predicted they would make from legalizing it statewide, but anyway.
Yeah, I think that everything has a phase in the course, so even if they didn't make the amount that they probably predicted, in time they probably will, and it's evolution. And me, I leave it in the democratic process. If it's something that the actual people actually voted for, especially just identifying with what happened here locally, is something that you have to adhere to or should adhere to. We didn't do that here, but the conversation has been going on in regards to weighing both of those options, illegal versus legal, etc. And it's overwhelmingly majority is for it. Whether you're for it or whether I'm for it or not for it, some things happen that we're not comfortable with or that we don't like. We have to continue moving forward at the end of the day.
Anybody else? Yes, fine.
Oh, you need to go. Go ahead, I'll go after her if I can.
I just have a general question. Hi, Renee.
Hey, Dr. Newman.
Politics, and back to politics, and my concern, and I've had conversations with Major, and I thank you and respect you for the work that you're doing, especially as a young person, but how do you plan to influence you only have one vote, so you have all these other votes here. How do you plan to train, teach, educate, influence your team to do what you feel is right in your heart and to follow your leadership?
Right. I think just from having the experience of being a uniter, I work with all different nationalities, people from different levels, whether it be billionaires, whether it be local group home counselors. I've had that unique opportunity to be able to operate in many spaces in regards to conversation, being able to bridge the gap, to be an effective communicator in a sense to where we start from from point A and end at point B, all the way up to the end, simply because it's about framing. I think I spoke to you a little bit about this. It's like one of my gifts is being able to take an ideal or a conversation and actually expedite the process so you don't really have to think about it. We can make it look complete to where you don't have to really make a tough decision on it. And so talking to people is just, there is no magic wand. I don't get it on the first time, but we have to keep pounding the pavement with it. And it's on me to be responsible enough and just hang in there and have the mental fortitude to know that I'm going to have to prove myself every single day with the community, but also with my constituents, you know, every single day. It's no different than what I've been doing in order to sell this product, in order to partner this player with BMW, or all these different things that I've done. I had to go and work for it and put them in the best light, so I can either get the check cut, get a yes, get the deal done, etc. It's no different than what I've been doing. I've been doing my entire life in multiple spaces, in various spaces. So I look forward for the challenge and opportunity. That question can go for anyone that would be in my role and position. The difference between them and me, in my opinion, is that I've had a lot of completion and a lot of success in that particular area.
Politics, sir, politics. Okay, thank you.
I agree.
Major, I know James asked this earlier in the first part of the conversation, but would you place rent control on the city agenda to be implemented in Pasadena? As you heard this lady say, and many of us, I lived at Los Robles in Washington, got a 60-day notice to quit for no reason. This was 3 years ago, was evicted. The man doubled the rent, literally doubled the rent when I moved out. 65, the paper just said, Star News just said a couple days ago, rent's gone up 65% in the last decade in LA County. Wages have gone up 35%, so that's 30% difference. People are being priced out of this community. Would you put rent control on the agenda?
It would be something consistently, well, let me just give you a straight up answer. I don't think rent control is the answer or to our problems, because simply put, rent control, if it was passed, you know, tomorrow, you would still be in the same predicament situation.
I would not.
I'm saying
I would be secure in my apartment.
Some people at that particular place. So the complexity is this: rent control doesn't create fairness for everyone, and that's the difference. So think about the person who get the raise, their status has changed, et cetera, et cetera. They can go up, but the owners who've worked hard to create a business for themselves, they can't go up on their particular market, but yet people who are benefiting off of their hard work, what they've created, they're benefiting off of the you know, their actual place. So some people are using it in a sense to where it's complex, but I don't think that's the ultimate.
I don't think it's, I'm not trying to say it's an ultimate or like a silver bullet.
But I do think there's a variation that needs to be created, and I'm gonna tell you why I say that. I think the rent control will never get passed because of who we have now currently on the city council. But
well, I'm also
I know, I hope you get it. I've advocated for us coming together to create different language on what it is, though. That's my biggest thing. Rent control is something that's already predetermined, that developers, landlords, or whatever, it's like, this is horrible, this doesn't benefit us. Well, what if we came together collectively? Remember, I'm always talking about the in addition to. What if we came together and put together something else that had a different parallel that still suited that in a fair way? So they didn't feel like they were just, you know, cut down the middle, like this is just what it is. Why can't we create something that has a more flexible meaning when it comes to that? That's what we have to come up with. Everything, that's when it comes to using imagination, right? Remember the first person that said that I'm gonna build a damn plane, right? Think about all the people who was like, oh my gosh, what are you talking about? You're gonna fly, right? We have to learn how to be more imaginative. Like I said, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I gotta figure out every single day how I'm gonna keep the lights on in my house. Every single day. In some way, somehow, I figure out some kind of creative way to do that. So that's what I'm saying. I don't have all the answers, but because I'm talking this way from a leadership perspective, it's going to spark the mind of you, spark the mind of this person, spark the mind of that person. That's how evolution happens within the community. If you really want to create a more lively, empowered community, you have to think outside the box. It's going to be uncomfortable. My answers are not going to be the best ones because there's a certain barrier that you feel like this is what it is. And I know you guys have done great work. You fought really hard for in regards to rent control, you fought for that title, what that word meant. I'm saying that let's create another word.
I don't care about the word.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep people in their homes.
So psychologically, the word is powerful. Words are powerful. Framing is powerful. Titles are powerful. I'm a marketing guy. So words mean everything. As soon as you say word to a landlord or developer, they shut down.
You can call it whatever you want to call it.
I know. So my thing is, we can work collectively to present something else and put the pressure on them from that perspective, because they know that we try to show them some favor, then we ram it down their throats.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on. Go.
Major, how are you? My name is Omar Taylor. I have a question for you. As a commercial property owner in the city of Pasadena, I've had a first row view with both increasing the homeless population, especially around the Old Town area and business districts of Pasadena, as well as the dramatic increase in nonviolent crime as a result of the presence trespassing, property damage, tagging, what may have you. So, as if elected mayor, what plans and what specific steps would you put in place to alleviate and offer protection for us as property owners with this increasing and raising problem?
I think that would be somewhat like a new division in regards to working with our public service and our police department, because that's not even on their radar at this point. So the fact that that's actually an actual issue would be something that we have to go to the table with the chief of police, local community watchers and neighborhood watch type of situations, and create that for the actual business community. I don't know if anyone exists in regards to a business watch community, but that's something that we could probably look into. I think that's, I'm working with multiple business owners in regards to having conversations with them every single day, and they're having similar plights to what you're expressing, and it's a growing issue and it's a growing problem. My campaign headquarters, every time I walk out at sometimes 1 in the morning, there are 4 people laying right in front of my place, and it's soiled and smell, and sometimes I worry about my safety because it's not like perfectly lit or whatever. But it's not a new phenomenon, but it's a growing, newer phenomenon that now we have to figure out how to actually address it. But once more, like I said, my foundation is fairness. We have to figure out why they're there, and is there an opportunity for them not to be there, more so than trying to police it.
And we're always in the HSA in that scenario.
Yeah.
You don't want to address that.
Yeah, so that's why I say we got to figure out why they're there, if there are services available that we can actually provide for them that could alleviate that situation or problem. Now, when it comes to vagrancy and crime and things of that nature, that still falls up on the umbrella of just general crime. And that's something that has to be reported, have security measures in place as far as in regards to your business and cameras that can capture something like that. And hopefully we can catch those individuals that participate in that type of crime.
Well, it's just interesting because Pasadena does a tremendous job cleaning the city up right around December 25th.
Hello. I was
It's a different city.
January 1st.
Can we go to the gentleman here, and then ma'am will.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mike Curry. Speaking to your point, I have like 3 commercial properties in Pasadena, and I've been here for 42 years. And my son is a detective at the Pasadena Police Department, has been for 10 years. And I must say that I have never seen the city better as far as Old Town being cleaned up. I mean, they draw money from my property, pay these guys to sweep the streets and clean up. Tagging, I used to have to wait and for days to come out and remove the graffiti. And I don't have graffiti now. So it's not a perfect scenario, but I'm very happy with where we've come, up to this point. We can always do better, but I must say that we've come a long way. In crime, like my son, he was a homicide detective, and he's a robbery detective now. And he even says, he's just not getting the calls. Whether people are leaving or, like, he was one of the top detectives. And what he said is they did a very good job at getting these guys that were the murderers or whatever, and they actually moved out of the city because they did not want to take the exposure chance of getting caught in the city. So I just think, we can always improve, but we've come a long way, and I see it, over the last 42 years.
Is there a question in there, sir?
Pardon?
Where do you live? You don't have to give me your address.
I have a property on Colorado Boulevard, and I have a property on Fair Oaks near Old Town, and I have a parking lot in Old Town.
That explains.
Is there a question?
I'm not in Old Town on Colorado.
Sir.
I'm
Sir.
In the theater district. So you walk up and down that street, you don't find any graffiti on
Sir.
the buildings now.
Excuse me, sir. Sir.
Anyway.
Okay, well, I guess there was no question in there. Ma'am.
Just like in most cities are Title II cities, so that's like Pasadena, you know. But I want you to, as I've heard you say this 2 stories before, just briefly, to say how you work from the ground floor. You made a story that was so phenomenal too, about the boy you helped that did the t-shirt business, I was very impressed with, and then the lady that needed some extra funds, how she did the survey. If you explain them very briefly, I think that kind of sets a tone as far as what I get from you, what you're about as far as helping the grassroots help people.
Right. Well, the story that she's speaking of, this summer, I participated in a entrepreneur workshop, which I spoke about earlier. And there was this young kid by the name of Solomon. Solomon is, I believe, 16 or 17 years old. And I was telling you guys the progression of how the class started at 15 kids and then it ended up being like, 60, 70 kids by the time we finished. But what he expressed to me a day before the second day of class is that he wants to be able to get in fashion. I have experience in fashion, and I've done, clothing lines and brands. And I told him, I said, so why haven't you started? And the first thing he said is, I don't have any money, to start. I said, you don't have to have any money to start. He looked at me puzzled, he looked at me real crazy. I said, this is what you're gonna do. So I brought Solomon up in front of the class, similar to a room just like this. And within 10 minutes, I showed him how to create a business, and 2 days later, he had sold 7 shirts. And basically what I told him was, I showed him a website, it's a drop shipping. I said, hey, you got a cool design, you have a logo, you go to this website, you put your logo on that shirt, you take that image off and you share that image with all your friends on social media and text it to them, you tell them whatever the price is, you don't have the product, but you have the image. As soon as they pay you through your PayPal, you use the money in your PayPal, go and buy the product, and it goes directly to them. You never touch product, and now you're a business owner, you have your clothing line. So like I said, 2 days later, he sold some shirts, and now he's in business. The other thing, I was at a Pasadena Tenants Union meeting, and there was a woman that had some issues with her rent going up $75. And I noticed while she was talking, like she literally had tears in her eyes, and she was just like, really distraught because of this. At the end of it, she had a iPhone similar to this one right here. And I asked her, I said, can I show you a cool, creative way that you can probably make a couple extra bucks? And what I did was I took her phone and she downloaded 2 apps. Well, I downloaded 2 apps, and these were survey apps. She's retired, she's at home, she's on a fixed income. 2 months later, she sent me a very long letter. I had to put on some reading glasses. I don't wear glasses because the writing was real tiny. She told me that now she's making $337 a month doing surveys. So what did I do then? I solved the problem for her. The money that she was paid, the increase was not a problem anymore. And I share those small finite stories because if you share that with the current mayor and leadership, he'll tell you to your face that's not his job. No different than what he tells our restaurant owners as well too, in regards to marketing or them opening or closing in the city. And that's my, I share those stories simply because I'm willing to operate beyond the black and white definition of what my role is. And I have experience in financial hacks. And so if you have someone from a leadership perspective that's willing to go far and beyond to help you sustain, to make a couple extra dollars, to be creative and look at you as a partner versus just a resident that's been combative or just another day of problems, I get excited. I get excited when people come at me and don't agree with me because it gives me multiple opportunities. One of them is that I may get a chance to learn something from that, but at the same time, maybe we can actually grow together because we don't have to agree or disagree to move forward and create greatness together.
Exactly.
Martin, and then we're coming down on our time, and we said we will end on time. Martin, maybe a couple of others.
This one's easy. I think I missed earlier what your position was on community oversight of the police and what kind of oversight you need for the police department. I'm pretty serious about this. My cousin was killed by the police. He got a $1.5 million, over $1.5 million settlement. He was done by one of the best attorneys in the world who just recently passed, you all know, Johnny Cochran. But for me and for this community, we spent millions of dollars, paying off people because they got killed by the police instead of working on what are we going to do to change the police department. So I hear about the commercial property and all these things. What about the human property? Us, especially in the Northwest. We have to start looking at some kind of oversight.
Right.
And let's get to the Pasadena Way. And that's my question for you. The Pasadena Way says, we don't have to do it like LA. We don't have to do it like Long Beach, but we gotta do it some way, the Pasadena Way, and make the people a part of that.
Right.
So I wonder what you said about that, and how you feel about community, civilian oversight in some format here in Pasadena.
Right. No, that's a great question. So basically, when I was asked that question, I said I'm open to it. The reason why I didn't say yes or no, as James wanted me to give him a yes or no answer, is because I'm the type of person I like to have all the details in regards to what that entails. And so I don't have to backtrack myself if it comes out to something that I don't support or even the people don't support, right? Because it takes two sides in regards to police department and also the community coming together to come up with something that they feel like is fair. So I start everything that I do from a foundation of being fair and working towards a common good that benefits us all. So it's something I'm definitely open to. I mean, I've been an advocate for fairness when it comes to communities. I am a direct, what's the best word? I've been in direct contact in regards to violence, with police officers in my youth. I've also had friends that were taken from me by police officers, but I've also developed really great relationships with servicemen and police officers and our armed services. And so I have a viewpoint and a vantage point from both perspectives. And the best way that I can approach anything is just trying to be open-minded, but understand there has to be fairness on both sides on how we actually move forward to it. But absolutely, I would be open for that.
I'm a fountain of information.
Say it again?
I said, I'm a fountain of information.
Absolutely, I need you.
Deborah, and then
Okay.
Noel, and then we'll wrap up.
As mayor, or how do you feel about what Santa Barbara has implemented in Los Angeles? And I noticed in Pasadena, where there's 500 homeless right now, and then there's others that are not considered homeless because they live in their car or they're couch hopping. They don't technically consider them homeless. And I was even told when you make so much money in your home, you're not considered homeless. But the question I want to ask you is the safe haven parking. Since the waiting list for people who are seniors or need a place is 1 to 6 years, that could be an alternative with all of these parking lots and empty buildings and places are willing to open for them to just have a police officer lights and people can safely park their cars if they want to live in their cars for that 1 year wait or whatever. So how do you feel about that? I know people not in my backyard, they don't want this, but it beats them when I catch the train at the lake station, walking through all of this mess and you walking out of your building and da-da-da. If they had a safe place to park, which all we need is a guard, a couple of lights, you're spending more than that.
Right.
Cleaning up the station.
That's a direct, let's use your imagination. That's solving a problem. I think everything that you said right now can easily solve a problem. The fact that it's not being said more, or beyond being said, is something that we're not advocating for to actually put the action behind it. I would have no issue with that. That would be something I would support. I would, of course, want to know how that would look, where it could possibly be, look at the schematics, and how we could actually produce something like that. But I would support something like that, especially if I understand that people are on a waiting list for 2 and 3 years.
Exactly.
If that's a true statement, if that's factual, then we have to start figuring out creative ways on what else we can do in addition to in regards to that.
And because this is the second part of my question, I promise, James. I won't open my mouth. I promise. This is a promise. Y'all heard it on the 4th of January. Oh Lord, help me. See, you almost made me forget my question. Now I know you're happy about that.
I love every question.
Y'all sidebar later. Noel?
I have another question, and this came up with most of the people asking, what can the city, or I hear city, I think of the government, what can the government do to fix my problems? Now, you guys, that's what I hear, and the problem with that is government should protect, is there to help us, but it shouldn't be our sovereign problem. Different people, different philosophies, I totally agree with you. My biggest fear, and I'm asking you this, do you think government is gonna solve everything? Because the problem is, if you give government too much problem, and the wrong guy gets elected to the big house, he can really mess things up. So that's my biggest fear is, do you really want government or the city president to have so much power that even your, good intentions to fix the city, something happens, you resign, you only last 4 years, and the next guy comes in, and with all this extra power, totally messes with the city.
Oh, like the presidency or something?
That's a great question. So,
Hello?
that's a great question. The difference between my kind of leadership is that I'm the in addition to. Think about the things that I'm proposing, the things like the Pasadena Fund that has nothing to do with the actual government. So we're actually empowering people. We're creating new mindsets collectively together, so we're not beholden just to the government.
So I'll just answer like this. Yes, the government solves all our problems, no, the government solves our problems, or other, and you talk to me later.
Oh,
Say it again.
I remember.
It's either yes, the government can solve all our problems, excuse me, the answer. Yes, the government can solve all our problems, no, it can't, or other, and you explain to me afterwards.
Okay, I remember. Okay. I was told, I remember.
Were you finished, Manuel?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just waiting for his answer.
He's waiting to answer a question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll say other, we can talk about it afterwards. It's a split conversation.
I don't want to box you in like you say, but.
No, it's all good, man. I love contact sports, man.
30 seconds there.
Okay,
We gotta
30
get out of here.
seconds. Okay, I understand what's put on the agenda, no matter how many of you guys vote in the council meetings, the mayor makes a final decision on what goes on the agenda. Since I've been back from Africa, I've been there almost every Monday until I started getting shut down. Now I'm going right in Twitter and Facebook and blasting, okay?
10 seconds.
What I wanted to say is, are you gonna put racial profiling and stuff that the community wants as opposed to just beautifying Pasadena on the agenda, what the people want, not just what the mayor decides? I don't want that. I wanna put how we can do the Arroyo Seco and that historic building. What about the community issues, the people issues? So as a mayor, you have a choice to take a vote on what's coming in, right? And that's it.
Right. So that's a great question. When it comes to that, you have to understand, I talk to so many different people from District 1 to District 7. And so as a mayor, I am governing over an entire city and an entire community. So when it comes to sections and groups or whatever, that doesn't represent the entire community.
We're only 2%.
It doesn't represent the entire city. And so I think that's how how it becomes priority or not priority. But understand who I am as an individual. I'm about fairness. And if it comes down to if that's something that's an issue with us here in this city, that's something that I will absolutely advocate for.
Oh, so that's why gentrification happens, so the 2% won't be on the agenda.
Yeah.
So if you look at it, if they keep the people who really have the concerns low numbers, the majority will get their stuff on the agenda, and we never will be. So that's gentrification.
Thank you. I arrived late, so if you answered this question already, just let me know to touch base with you later. I have 14 years experience working at Pasadena Unified School District, as well as 6 years experience working at the city of Pasadena. So with that, I feel that I can say we have a diversity, inclusion, equality, and belonging problem or opportunity to solve. What is your specific plan to address diversity, inclusion, equality, and belonging as an employer?
Sure. Or you, which school are you at?
I'm sorry?
You say you're a teacher, right?
No, I'm in the city now.
Okay. Saying here in the city?
Correct.
She works for the city.
She works for the
She's a
city.
employee.
So say the question again.
I worked for PUSD,
Okay.
and now I work for the city.
So
So that's how I know that we have a diversity and inclusion and equality problem.
Yes.
What is your specific plan to address diversity, inclusion, equality, and belonging?
Sometimes everything, when it comes to that, just comes down to messaging and making those contact points. So if it's exactly what you just said right now, people don't even know that. Not everyone knows that. And so you have to actually get it out there in order to start addressing it or changing the narrative when it comes to that. And so what I've come across multiple times when I'm talking to people is that everyone thinks that everyone thinks like them, or feels the exact same way that they feel, versus so they feel so passionate and beholding like this is what it is. Someone over here may not have no idea that that's what's felt or that's what's actually going on. Me, from a leadership perspective, I can take your voice and take your message and put it in the bright lights, so to speak, so it brings attention to certain areas that don't know, go to your area that actually feels that. And I think that once more, that just comes full circle to who I've been when it comes to connecting the dots in regards to messaging, products, or whatever the case may be. So that's something that we would absolutely put in the bright lights to bring everyone together so they can actually know that's actually going on. Perfect example. A good buddy of mine was talking about me on another good buddy's show about me. And when asked about me, what do you think about Major Williams for mayor of Pasadena? The first thing that my buddy said was, he's a great basketball player. He should be in movies, he looks good, right? So mind you, my count, oh my gosh, my wife, she's like, the audacity out there, like, what about everything you've accomplished? So he framed a certain way, but I knew, that's my buddy, and he probably dropped the ball when that happened. I didn't feel any kind of, you know, and those type of things happen. And once I had a conversation with him, a light went off, which like, oh my gosh, that didn't come out right at all, right? Universally, that happens all the time. So thanks for sharing it with me. If I was to be blessed to become the next mayor of Pasadena, that's something that I definitely will take and put in the bright lights to make sure that everyone understood how we saw those things.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, as I said, we want to respect everybody's time. This is Major Williams. What happens on March 3rd?
March 3rd, make sure you are registered to vote.
All right. Thank you guys for coming out. Major, be here. Make sure you like and follow Major's campaign for updates, as well as like and follow the Conversation Live.
I think it went fantastic. Thank you so much for coming.
I'm very glad about your courage.
Thank you, I appreciate
Yeah.
pushing
Oh, really? So this is Mom's? How are you? Nice to meet you.
I'm very happy. She had her own question about class next time.
I know.
Yeah, we had the city. We had to
We're gonna have a team talk about it.
Yeah, we are.
How you doing?
Good job. You know, got some good ones and bad ones.
It's up and down.
You gotta give people a visual, right?
I'll text you later. It's a good part. Great meeting you. Until next time.
Yes, well, I'll make sure. All right, I'll catch you later. Say hi.
Put it in.
I like to know you want to see the first time.
Really?
I'm so glad to see you speak. You did a great job. Answer the questions sincerely. Yeah.
Happy New Year.
I drove all the way down to Santa Barbara for vacation. I dropped my wife off in the road and I'm sure I made it.
Wesley drove
So they rushed you to run into, right? And when they rode it, more out there, I know.
When they wrote it, he said, all right,
Unfortunately, we were scheduled. I don't know how long.